Hi, and welcome to chapter 20. What are we on now? About 27? Sure, I think that's right. Chapter 27. And we're going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen with you. And I believe I'm here. This is Learning Objective 4. Go ahead and cue up the slideshow. Sorry about that. Okay, so we're going to take a look at the idea of risk in this particular objective. Take a look at a little bit deeper in that risk-return trade-off, and then talk about some of the ways that finance individuals will offset risk. So a rational response to risk. Some people, we kind of classify different types of risk, and the different types of risk that we classify, I'm going to grab my notes over here, are that when we take a look at a person being risk averse, risk neutral, or risk seeking. And the context of this does in fact matter. So risk aversion is that you don't like any type of risk whatsoever. In the intro to this objective, I talked a little bit about what's the difference between risk and ambiguity. And if we talk about risk, it's the known unknowns. Okay, so that, the known unknowns. So basically what we know is that we don't know something, but we have a good probability of predicting that. Where we really have the idea of ambiguity is when we look at we don't know what we don't know. Okay, so in this case, we know that some of these things could happen and we can predict them. All right, so we use statistics to do that. Okay, so let's go ahead. The utility function, and remember the law of diminishing marginal returns basically says that when we take a look at economics, one of the things that we know is people have loss aversion. And this means that we feel it more when we lose money versus gain money. Okay? And when I say we feel it, we have a greater sensitivity to losses than we do to gains. It also is contextual based upon the wealth effect. And the wealth effect basically says is that if you give somebody with millions of dollars $20, they're not going to see a big gain in that. But if you give the same $20 the same amount, $20, to someone who has no money, then they're going to have a much greater wealth effect from that. Again, goes back to that law of diminishing returns. So this is the utility function, and the utility means the want-satisfying power of a good or a service. In this case, the gain of $1,000, the gain or the happy feeling, you could look at utility like that, of winning $1,000. Notice if we compare that, okay, so that we're looking at this space right here, to losing $1,000, and it hurts more to lose. And so this is where we come into the idea of loss aversion, and that loss will have a greater driver on our behavior than the gains of possibilities. So consider this scenario, okay? Okay, so what's the difference between losing $0 and losing $100? Yeah, each is pretty bad, but the difference between losing 1,000 and losing 1,001 isn't nearly as great. So I think that's a really good example of loss aversion. One of the ways that we deal with loss aversion is to buy insurance. So insurance is a way to offset a probable future state. Okay, so let me talk personally just a moment about some of the idea. So the insurance company might accept all or part of the risk. Okay, so for example, I have insurance that covers me when I go to the emergency room. It's not health insurance. They basically pay me anytime I go to the emergency room. So why do I have it? I have it because I've been to the emergency room a lot. I have a lot of replacement parts. I just added a rider to that for cancer. So if I'm ever diagnosed with cancer, there's a one-time $10,000 payout right when my diagnosis hits. So why would I do those kinds of things? Because the probability of an individual getting cancer is quite high. And so therefore, the probability that I will use this, to me, is worth the monetary loss that I have per month. It's around 20 bucks or something. It's relatively low. All right, let me go back and share my screen with you. We'll get back into our lecture. Okay, so the role of insurance is to not to eliminate the risk, but to make it more efficient. And there are two huge problems with insurance. One is adverse selection, okay? So adverse selection means that you purchase insurance if you're more likely to use it. Okay, so why do I have this ER insurance? Due to use. Okay. I have this ER insurance because in the past I've went to the emergency room so many times. I actually can recognize the doctors out on the street. So that's kind of bad. And they started to know me pretty well. I was engaged in high risk activities, which are horses, right? So adverse selection, I'm going to be likely to apply for insurance because I am in a high risk category. Okay. Now, a moral hazard is after you buy insurance, you might be less likely to play it safe. Because, for example, I might say, I'll just, if I go the insurance will pay for it. So I might not take all the precautions that I normally would if I did not have that insurance. We use moral hazard in many instances, and the latest one was with the bank bailouts in the economic collapse of 2008. Okay, identify which of the following is an example of adverse selection or moral hazard. Joe begins smoking in bed after buying fire insurance. Now, because he engages in the behavior after buying the insurance, we would say that this is a moral hazard. Both of Susan's parents lost their teeth to gum disease, so she buys dental insurance. That's adverse selection because she's buying the insurance because she believes she is at a higher risk for that type of issue. When Gertrude parks her Corvette convertible, she doesn't bother putting the top up because her insurance covers thefts of any items. Again, she already has the insurance, so she's engaging in risky behaviors like leaving the top up because the insurance will cover any theft. All right, so moral hazard, adverse selection, and moral hazard. Okay, so when we talk about insurance, it's a pooling of risks. So I'll give you an example. My health insurance through the college, what we do is we pool all the employees of the college. And one of the issues that we have when we seek, and I'm part of the healthcare task force at the college, is we look at our age, okay? And we have predominantly older employees. And so that is an issue because it means that we're more at risk for medical issues that come as a result of becoming older, okay? And again, what's the price reflects we'll face after the insurance is bought. So they kind of take it and look at it statistically and say, out of this group of employees, how many are likely to have this? How many are likely to have this? They might look at health status overall. If you're overweight, engaged in activities you shouldn't be engaged in, according to being healthy. Okay? So that's this particular objective, talking about risk. And we're going to talk in the next one about what are some of the insurance policies that you can perhaps take out if you're in the stock market or if you're investing financially. So one of those might be hedging, which is where you buy options. A lot of people do that. You bet not only on companies increasing in value, but also decreasing in value. And the biggest one, diversification. So we'll talk about that in our next objective. Thanks for your time, attention. Have a great day.